Hello, Fourth and Long fans. It's your AFL correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here, with another interview with some U.S. sports, some U.S. AFL fans here. And today we have the pleasure of Miss Alyssa Zaijan. And good to see you, Alyssa. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I'm good. Been enjoying some of the cold weather up here, but good.
Yeah, always. Not everybody enjoys that cold weather sometimes, so sometimes you got to do. So,
That's true.
alrighty. So, kind of just to get to know you just a little bit, kind of just a little bit of a quick bio on who you are, kind of anything except footy.
Okay. Um, I am a. I recently graduated with my master's in museum studies, actually. Um, right into the pandemic, of which there's museums are closed everywhere, but that's okay. Um, so I'm really interested in science and science communication, and that's kind of what I do. I do a lot of knitting and dancing as well. Those are my things, I think.
Sounds like a nice transition. Museum, knitting, and dancing. It's absolutely
Yeah,
awesome. I mean, we all have our own fun little things. So I gotta ask, um, how did you find footy?
that is an excellent question, and it's kind of a it's def I think it's a different story than probably pretty much anybody else. I was watching a murder mystery show that is it's the Miss Fisher's Murder Mystery. So it's an Australian murder mystery show. And there was an episode where a footy player like got killed, and it was like there was things with the rival teams, and they kept talking about like footy and football, and I was like, what is Australian football? I saw the ball, I was like, that's not a soccer ball. So like, what is their football? And so I looked it up, and I watched like some videos of it, and then sure enough, it was during this whole pandemic thing. So it was this past winter, spring, and sure enough, the season was starting back up that weekend, and I was like, I've got nothing else to do. Let's watch some of these games, and I kind of fell in love very fast.
That's absolutely awesome. Some of the stories are just always so interesting, and that's definitely a really, really unique one. So going
Yeah.
off that, I gotta ask, what's your club?
My club is the Port Adelaide Power,
The
going
Power,
strong.
a good one,
Yeah,
a good one. You picked a really good club to hop on this year, especially with their big increase in wins this year, and
that's
that
true.
definitely a fun one to watch. So I gotta ask, what type of fan are you? Are you the diehard that get up and watch every game when they're live?
hmm
Or
hmm
you watch it kind of here and there, you keep an eye on it, but not like totally? And how would you define your fandom?
I definitely was getting up live for live games. So that was sometimes it was staying up because it was like an 11 p.m. game here, which was fine. And then the 5 a.m. games were tough, but fine. It's the 2:30 a.m. games that are just so rough. It's like the mid afternoon in Australia is like 2:30 a.m. here, so it was like middle of the day. But yeah, I'm the get up and watch it live, especially for Port. Other games, I'll record them and watch them, or like if I'm up, watch them. But Port, I was like, get up live, watch it, tweet it, all that jazz.
I know the feeling. I can definitely say that I spent a few times surprising some of my fellow Sydney Swans fans by saying, "Yep, it's 2:30 in the morning. I'm wide awake watching the footy." It's
Yeah, I've gotten
those
a lot of those.
those 2:30 games. They're such the weird ones because you can either go to sleep and then set your alarm to be sure you're up, or you
Yeah.
kind of try to power through, but then you get to the fourth quarter and you're like, I'm falling asleep. Gotta stay awake.
Exactly.
Gotta stay awake, especially if it starts getting kind of iffy. So I know the struggle there is so much fun. So going off that, so I see that you're a massive fan on that. I gotta
Hmm.
ask, and I know sometimes this is like choosing your favorite child. Who's your favorite player on the team currently? And have you delved into the history of the Power, including their times
Hmm.
in the SANFL? And
Hmm.
do you have maybe an old timey history, an older player?
Right. My favorite current player, it's actually not that hard to choose for some reason. I love them all.
Mhm,
But Zach Butters, I latched on to him. I was like, this is my child.
mhm.
Um, I love watching him play. He just has so much energy and like enthusiasm when he's going out there. And so Zach Butters is definitely my favorite current player. Um, I've looked into a bit of the history. As again, I'm a museum person, so of course I
Mhm.
love history as well. But I don't know if I've picked a favorite player of the past. That's a really good question.
Definitely one of those. And going off that, since we're kind of going off the past a little bit, so I gotta ask:
Hmm.
thoughts on the prison bars. Are you angry with Eddie McGuire that he won't let you, or are you kind of like, "Ah, I'm used to the teal and the new unis that you kind of were kind of introduced to at first?"
Yeah, I think I am pro prison bars, at least some of the time, because I think it is a really good tie to the tradition and the history, and especially I think really Port Adelaide wants to, as the club wants to wear them for showdowns against Adelaide,
Hmm.
and it's like it's a showdown. Like people know that this is Adelaide versus Port Adelaide. There's not going to be any confusion. No one's going to think it's a Collingwood game.
Hmm.
Like so I think it'd be a great traditional kit. It's just so nice to like honor the past.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things I absolutely love, and with being able to embrace that. I mean, there's so much more history with that. I
Yeah.
mean, the Power being a relatively new kind of change to it from the old Port Adelaide
Yeah, definitely.
Magpies. So, and I think that's kind of one of those that I love the history of the sport, and I dove into it myself. So
Yeah.
I really enjoy that because it's a lot of fun sometimes. So I know. Um, Going into this year, kind of being your first
Hmm.
year as a fan,
Yeah.
what were your thoughts on this year's team? I mean, I know they had a lot of success most of the year, and then and then the finals kind of they had their little
Hmm.
hiccup. Kind of
Yeah.
what were your thoughts as a brand new fan on this season? Were you excited? Does it leave you wanting more? I mean, what's kind of your thoughts on this last year?
Yeah. This last year, I think for Port was just like we finished top of the table. So it was a very exciting season, I think, um, especially as a new fan. I will say this also. I have not ever really watched sports. I've never been a big sports person until this.
Hmm.
So this was kind of my first time like seriously following a team through a season and everything. And I think it was quite the season to have and get to experience. And I, the club did amazing, so many wins and so much energy and just you could tell that they all loved doing what they were doing and playing with each other and even through the finals and even that loss, everyone was still so happy and so like happy to be playing with each other. Some sad, I even was getting sad with Justin Westhoff and Brad Ebert both retiring. Like I was getting sad. I was like, I've only learned of them this year, but I'm sad they're leaving, because you can just feel it in the club and the community that it's they're part of the club, and so I think I'll definitely keep going, especially yeah with Port. It's such a nice community, I think, and it got
Yeah,
me riled up.
yeah, and then you start getting those connections to the players and stuff like that. So
Yeah,
it's really, really cool. And especially as a first year fan. I mean, I've got at least 3 or 4 years with my Swans, and last year we had
yeah.
four all retire in the same time. So that was
Hmm.
probably one of the hardest games to watch because it's the Swans win it. They're not gonna make the finals. But to see
Yeah.
four guys retire all at the same time, it was is even I caught myself. You get a little emotional because you're like, oh, I
Yeah,
don't want to see them not play anymore.
exactly.
So after that, okay, season ends. Have you been
Hmm.
keeping track of their off season at all?
I have as best as I can on social media and things. Um, since the season's ended, I've also finally got a job, so I have less time to obsessively think about Port, which was what was happening through a lot of my pandemic time here, because
Hmm.
I had nothing else to do. So I've stayed. I like to think I stayed on top of it.
Good. So, and then the cool little thing about our two clubs is we actually made a trade with each other. So I got to ask you, would you like a
Yes.
little bit of a communication on what player you're getting in a Lear?
Yes, please let me know.
Well, the biggest thing for you is I know one of the things that a lot of people bashed Port Adelaide on was not having a lot of height in their
Yeah.
defensive half of the ground. You're getting a big body. You're getting a very
Yeah.
good ball reader. I think he got a little frustrated in Sydney last year because with our ruck injuries, he was having to put in the ruck
Yeah.
and he's athletic enough. He's really good, but I think sometimes he didn't want he wanted to play defense because he reads the ball really well.
Yeah, definitely.
A good ball user. I think he'll. I think he'll really fit into your side. I think he adds a lot, and then adding Fantasia from Essendon. I think
Yeah.
honestly, I think Port was one of the teams. I think that they filled the holes that they needed to. So I think you're gonna love him. He's a good ambassador having the Sudanese background, so he's always in
Yeah.
the community. I know that was one of the things that a lot of the Swans fans that I chat with, that they're going to miss is that he was so involved in the community, and he's such a good ambassador for that. So you're getting a good one. I'm sad to see him
Awesome.
leave, but I think he really does bring Port that much closer to maybe competing with
Hmm.
the Richmonds and the Geelongs for the flag next year. So I
Yeah, let's hope.
Port is one of those teams I honestly like. I see three or four teams really being flag favorites. I think
Hmm.
Richmond's there because they're so good. Geelong, with all of their moves in the offseason,
Yeah.
definitely they're going for it. I think Port really is there too. And then I think the Western Bulldogs would be the other team that I honestly, those four teams right
Yeah.
now, my top four, it's hard to argue, but we'll see. It all just kind of depends, injuries, all that. How's the
Yeah.
fixtures going to be? So let's not dive too much into that. Um, so being one of the first females that I've actually gotten to interview, I got to ask,
Yeah.
is it a little sad to see that Port Adelaide does not have an AFLW? Are you going to keep track of the AFLW? And then if
Yeah.
they get a team, will you be just as passionate for the women's as you will the men's?
Yeah, I am very excited for the women's season, and I am very sad that Port doesn't have a women's team. So now I've got to like figure out who my women's team is going to be. I'm leaning towards the Bulldogs because got Danny Marshall, so US, and my sister, doesn't follow AFL as much,
Hmm.
but she's a big sports person. So like the Bulldogs have always been like her like AFL team, and like
Hmm.
she kind of paid attention to it. Um, so she's like, yeah, go Bulldogs for it. Um, so I think I'm leaning towards that. But if Port were to have a women's team, I would 100% be behind it with all of my energy. Um, yeah,
That is great to hear. But so I got to ask this too, and this is one of the first times is that for several of the people that I've interviewed, they have USAFL ties. I think the closest team to you is Maine. Would you
yeah.
ever be interested in strapping on the boots and having a kick?
I've had this conversation. Yeah, I would. I just am not near. I'm not very close to any teams at the moment, but I have a ball. I kick it around. I hit it around. Whoever I can wrangle to do it with me.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
Well, if you ever find yourself in the Midwest, we got an open door policy here at the Des Moines Roosters. You're more than willing to train with us if you ever find your way here.
excellent.
That's for all people. I've said it numerous times in many interviews. For many of these clubs, we have open door policy. So if you do find your
Yeah.
way, please reach out because all of them are there to help. Uh, so we've chatted a little bit about you. I gotta ask now, favorite
Mhm.
game you've ever seen, whether it's Port Adelaide or not, most likely I think it
Mhm.
will be, but favorite game that you have actually been able to see.
Um, it is going to be Port Adelaide, and it's actually I think the first Port game I watched, and it was the showdown with Adelaide this season, where I mean Port dominated that showdown,
Mm-hmm.
which was really fun to watch. And it was, I think, since it was one of the first games I watched, it's really stuck with me because just the energy of it, and having the Adelaide versus Port Adelaide is always a roaring time. And
Mhm.
so just to see both teams having fun and like going hard, and I think Port, especially in that, was having a really fun time, and it was really my first exposure, so it sticks with me, I think. And it was, yeah, the Port had like 117 maybe, and Adelaide was not doing so hot in that game, so it was real good for Port.
Yeah, and definitely those are always the fun showdowns. Those are always the fun showdowns. So, um, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and this has been so much fun. And is there any way to for any of the fellow USAFL fans, or maybe even some Port fans that are listening to this for the first time, if they want to get a hold of you, kind of what your social media is, just to be able so then they can get in contact with you?
Yeah, so on Twitter I am a superstar Z, with a little A to Z there. And I believe Instagram is the same, I think. But I'm more active on Twitter. So if you want to find me there. If I'm not talking about Port or AFL in general, I'm probably talking about Star Wars or science. Those are my other two things.
What a combination! What a combination! I have to say, she is a very fun watch on Twitter. I have to enjoy it. I still, one of my favorite ones was we did our predictions for this particular show, and I went against Port. I wasn't too confident about them, so I had to have a little fun, and I asked for an apology, and she was very quick to give me an apology. So I have to thank you for that. That was a
You're
lot of fun.
welcome.
And it definitely made me smile a little bit to be able to have a little bit of fun, and definitely a fun follow. So, Alyssa, thank you again so much for this. This has been an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure. You have yourself a great day. Stay warm. I know it's nice and cold up there in Vermont. I know it's starting to
Yes.
slowly get a little bit colder here. I know we were chatting before we hopped on that we both have already had snow in our particular places. So,
Mm-hmm.
so snowy Christmas? Yes, no.
Here's hoping. We'll see.
We'll have to
We'll
see.
see.
Those brown Christmases aren't so much fun. We'll have to
They're
definitely
they're
say that.
not. Everything's just gray.
No, so
So let's hope for a white Christmas.
I hope so too. So that's it. Thanks, Fourth and Long fans. Y'all have a good night.